placed on Ether just before the attack. So have they got what they want already? And do they care at all about anything anymore? Like it dropped in price $11. With a big short, they've walked away with a lot of money. Do they even care anymore?
I have a question. We obviously don't know, but it's an interesting point. I get the feeling it's more about money, given the divide it's sort of caused in the community, especially if you go on Reddit and the DAO Slack. Like, it's a bit of a war going on. What I wonder is, you know, if whoever this, I think it would have to be more of a coordinated effort. I don't believe it's just one guy. I mean, it would be pretty crazy if it was. One of the concerns I have is the network's still small, and is there any way like a 51% attack could be executed? I don't have the know of if it could be, but say you had the resources to put up enough nodes, what would be, is there any scenario where that could happen?
I saw something said that the mining power went up by 95% in the last month or something. So the hash power, someone's either building it up or it is possible. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a question that...
it's only on GPUs, and you can run it on AWS. It's not a big problem.
Yeah.
If you've got the money, you can do it.
And they've also done recent releases of GPUs that are doing a lot more power for a lot cheaper and a lot more efficient, because we've moved on to 2 new chipsets, both on AMD and NVIDIA. So a lot of small things happening that makes it rather convenient for mining now.
So this may be my ignorance, but when you're talking about a 51% attack, like we've had an attack and we're talking about splitting to avoid it, would we not just have this same discussion as soon as that attack became apparent? So couldn't we head it off?
We probably would have the same discussion, but I'm just wondering, is it another hiccup down the road that, is it a real threat?
If they can make the decisions if they have the hash power. So if there's the fork, and exchanges will go with the most profitable fork, which looks like the one that's getting mined the most. If they can move that mining and say everybody's going this way, they can force the decision to a certain extent.
Wouldn't we? I mean, they might go with it because that's where the mining power is. But wouldn't everyone else just go, "This is a sham," and just?
Yeah, well, that was the problem with the soft fork. It was only decided by
That's a
miners.
governance issue across the board.
That was the problem. Our miners, the people that make the correct
It's all
decisions.
governance.
So this is because at the end of the day, I'm not trying to say this is right, but is it true that the miners at the end they have the final say?
They did on the soft fork, but we don't know on the hard fork.
And you would think it would be the same, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that there's people in there with a whole bunch of money at stake, and they're just trying to save their livelihood, I guess, in some ways. If they put a tremendous amount of money that they'd rather, yes, they knew they were playing in a field where the wind blows and it could all blow away, but right now they're sitting there thinking about where their houses might be going and where their families are going to be thereafter. So it's a different discussion for them. Someone's stolen something, and this needs to be some sort of way of getting justice be played out. And on the other side of things, well, hang on, you're playing in a game here where you knew what was going on, so now you're threatening the whole underlying kind of. If we start going down that track, we're basically going to employ a police force to have justice running over it, whereas we want to live in a world where the whole thing is actually corrected within, and you play the game and whatever. So it's a tough one for somebody. When we were last night we're having a great discussion, but one person's discussing it on the basis I'm about to lose it. Like a lot of money and a lot of value has been taken from me. In a totally unjust situation, and we've got this philosophical discussion now, which could leave me, so it's and then it came up about, well, maybe this other person who's taking this money is really setting up a way to have 2 separate situations. Some will go this way, some will go that way. So, Ethereum 1 and 2 or blockchain 1 and 2 or whatever. So, which is not unusual when you think about the overall development of things like this anyway. 2 cells splitting and making a new body or something, So
well, you have one
stuff.
Hospital and then you have 2 hospitals, the public sector and the private sector. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's
But if all of this has got to come to fruition sometime in the next 2 days,
If it does split, if you're holding Ether right now, you're gonna be holding Ether on both chains effectively. So
You have two mentalities.
it's gonna really divide people if it does split. They might be thinking one way now, but if it splits and they get offered something on the other side, it's.
Well, I think there was a discussion along those lines. Is it would be difficult, but one sort of represents, I guess, the efficiency of the whole thing and a justice kind of in an old manner. Another represents, no, hang on, this is a brand new way this is a new mentality, this is a new frontier, and it doesn't include police. Yeah. It includes us going into something, knowing that it's all there and it all can be blown away, but we've got to work to get it right. So the harder we work to get it right, the better it'll be as a true community of.
Well, if you've read into the Silk Road case and how much the FBI and the people that were in that, the dark agents that really did some dodgy stuff, so you can see what they're prepared to do.
Yeah.
And if they come into Ethereum, there's no saying what they could do. So it's I just hope it never needs to be regulated or something like that doesn't happen.
It's a big dream. It's an amazing thing that if you can pull it off.
Did anyone here see that the ECC made a statement? Just one of I don't think it was an official statement, but one of the people from the ECC commented saying that this is a reason why blockchain needs to be regulated.
Wait, what's the ECC?
I mean, you can search it up on Google.
The acronym.
Sorry?
What's the ECC? I'm not familiar with
the
the
Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yeah.
They're the biggest financial regulatory body in America.
Well, it makes absolute sense for people like that to be causing this sort of thing. Yes. Absolutely, doesn't it? I mean, it's just all the same as all the other crap that we see going down every other day in the so-called real world.
I don't think they're smart enough to do that.
Yeah. I've been in the whole debate over like who caused it, who is this hacker? Like it's just fruitless.
They
Like,
might
what
not
is
have
it?
caused
it would be.
Like we
It's
had
true.
there was a bug in the code and somebody exploited it.
Yes.
It could have been anyone. It could have
Yep.
been a bot. It really doesn't matter.
They might not have started it, but they could easily find the people and piggyback off it quite easily.
There are plenty of powers that be would be not wanting this to work at all.
Look, that's true.
So,
Yeah.
You know.
But so the way Ethereum or any blockchain works, say the SEC did want to crack down and regulate Ethereum, would that even be possible?
Well, I don't think so. How? I mean, it's on thousands of computers all over the world. You know, it's a distributed network.
It'd be like trying to get like the clear internet in China. It's not going to be impossible. It's going to make it hard.
Right.
I mean,
A few key people they could perhaps try and hold accountable. I don't know the law well enough, but
I mean, things like if they were to go, so this is real conspiracy theory, but if, say, the SEC and some government were to try to shut down Ethereum, they could potentially, like, lean on some of the core devs.
like the
or-
curators or something like
curators.
that, yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think the fact that we still have Bitcoin
Yeah.
is good evidence that we're okay in that regard,
Yes.
actually.
And
Because
we don't know who's Satoshi.
well, yeah. So, I mean, you know, it seems like it's a fairly difficult precedent to change that you can't censor a protocol. Like you're censoring speech in effect if you're doing that. So I think that's why we still have Bitcoin, because there's other uses for Bitcoin than pirating movies, sort of thing. So it's the same with Ethereum. And I don't think we're ever going to be in a place where we can't use it because they've blacklisted the protocol from all the routers in the world or something. Hopefully. Who knows?
If the ECC wanted to do that, though, would the way you'd do it, would it not just be to declare that Ethereum or any other thing that we're having to use is illegal?
Yeah.
They set up their own that is legal, and then they start to prosecute anyone that's using anything else, and they just use the moral argument to try to just bring everyone over, and then they bring it into their regulatory sphere. Isn't that what you do?
Yeah.
True. Pretty much.
And what do we do about that?
I think like a while ago, a few years ago, we thought that they could never censor the internet, which is right around censorship. But I think we've seen that, especially China, they've done a great job of censoring the internet.
China censors the internet outside their own country. Like, they have it such that your products won't actually appear on the internet in China for Chinese consumers if you don't conform to their rules. So they actually project their censorship out. And if you want to do business with China, one of the largest markets, you have to conform to their ideas of censorship. So they don't even censor within their own country, like that they project their censorship out. So, yeah, I mean, if you can do that, then
does that make it funny that they hold the most Bitcoin mining power in the world?
It's not censoring out words per se, though. It's like what you're explaining. Like to be able to have a product displayed in China, it has to conform to what they want to be seen. That's not exactly censorship. That's just falling under restriction, which
influence.
But they filter out what they don't want you to see. Is that not the definition of censorship?
They set up their own rules, yeah.
Yeah, but like asking you, there's a difference between stopping someone from seeing something out in the world and asking the world, to stop showing them something. Like those two are two different actions.
I'd argue that they're the same thing.
Similar.
They have the same effect.
All those companies that want to go into China have a financial incentive where this is something held by the people that...
But if we all start conforming to their notion of censorship, isn't that in effect what has happened? We have been censored. So.
Yeah, in other words, there's no freedom there. That's right. If you want to come and play in my backyard, well, you have to come this way.
If you want to make money, you have to play by our rules because we live in a capitalist system. So,
yeah. So they're just locking their front gate. That's all. So all that's happened is we just get to do business anywhere else in the world where those kind of rules don't apply. But that could happen anywhere. With the way the world's, with the Brexits and all the other attitudes that are moving in that sort of way, it's possible anyway.
But Chinese media here is apparently being censored by the Chinese government. That was in one of the papers recently.
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it's not the way we think. We don't think it's acceptable at all. But it's a whole different political mentality, isn't it?
Can I ask a question? So let's say, for instance, we all invested 50% of our wealth right now in the DAO, and it got hacked, and we all know what Ethereum stands for, and it got hacked. Just like show of hands, would you agree with like doing a soft fork or a hard fork and getting those funds back and reinstating on a new path of Ethereum, or would you continue with the old? And it was 50% of your personal value. Just put yes or no, hard fork or soft fork, and let's do a vote, basically.
It's based on Ethereum right now, not if it happened in the future.
Oh, if it, based on...
So just the DAO hack. So
the DAO hack happened now, like this is just in a scenario, yeah.
How young Ethereum is.
We started one now.
Yeah, we started one now, the DAO happened, and then a week down the track, I lose, say for instance, I have $50,000, maybe I'm worth $100,000, I put $50,000 of my wealth, half of my value, and I've got all this, for me, I've got all this this feeling of what Ethereum could be in the future, or some type of decentralized internet in the future. Would personally, for yourself, would you feel like I need to save that $50,000 and I need that $50,000 back, or is there something greater? I know it's a hard question, and
It's the age-old
it's a dilemma.
Personal interest versus the
yeah.
community. So
I think it was a problem in every single contract on the DAO. So if it was just a bad investment, if the company that they invested in went bad, too bad, so sad. But it was across the whole DAO. So it's only in beta. It's going to happen once. If it happened again in 3 months' time, they remade a new DAO, got refunded, it happened again, I don't think we'd get consensus. It's not going to. Nobody's going to put up their hand to refund them again.
Should we do a show of hands just quickly? Just like I'll put the camera away and you guys. How many people in the room right now? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 people. So it's a moral question, isn't it? Is it how much do it?
I'm not sure I could vote on that.
I don't know.
Because I don't have interest at all, so
a financial transaction. I think that's the whole thing. Is that is this about is it a philosophy? Is it a political? Is it whatever? But by having this conversation, we're reducing it down to a 0 or 1. We're reducing it down to a transactional decision, and that's not what this was supposed to be doing. And I think this is why we're actually perpetuating the things that we very much want to actually remove from the concept of these discussions, and that's coming down to individualistic thinking.
Well,
You know,
agree.
we've now pitted it to, will you lose it or will you not? Make a choice. And that's like, well, that's not what this was all about.
Well, you can rephrase it quite simply. You can simply say, would you give it? In other words, it's a matter of, would you invest 50% of what you're worth, or would you gladly give it? Then it's all of a sudden, it's like saying, well, I'm going to give the rest of my life towards this. I'll go and earn money elsewhere, but I'm going to work 24 hours because I believe, I love this, I believe what it stands for. Yeah, it's true. So where you put money on the table, it can be, well, look, I'm prepared to just throw whatever it is. It might be 100% of everything that I own. There it is. I'm done.
That's your risk. But that's
it's not a matter of that. I don't. And this is very good. I'm glad you mentioned this, because this is really what you're talking about. Hey, this is not an investment for me. This is, hey, I love this, and I've got a bag of money. There it is, and then it goes. If it does go, it's gone, and we're all good. Some people have obviously not had that idea. They've gone.
That's what you're saying. People are wanting a return.
They do.
You're saying,
yes.
I'm just going to chuck it in there for the hell of it.
That's right.
But
because I love it.
Because you've got people mining. That's why people are mining, because they're in it to make money. So that's part of the rub of this whole scenario.
It's part of the environment. Where you've got a purity, you've got where it's your life, and it's a new mentality. Then that's your mentality. That's where you are. That's where you're in it. Well, there's another part of it, where a whole bunch of people are working, have invested some money, and that's part of the deal.
But I guess when we look at the whole context of the discussion that's been going on for the last 8 years, and probably even before that with other iterations, it's just because it's called blockchain now, but the DAO is a contract.
Yeah.
It's a contract.
Yeah.
Acknowledge it's a contract.
Yeah. That's
decentralized, autonomous. It's not a company, it's not a pair of people, it's not a philosophy.
Right.
It's a contract. And I think we're forgetting that. It was a contract that didn't work. There was some
Bad code.
Yeah.
bad code.
Yeah.
Why are we actually breaking this down to actually a choice between, will I give my money or do I want it back? Why have we actually got it down to that actual denomination of discussion?
Because there was some very intelligent people that didn't actually, because
when
like
we looked
the
at
kind of people that
reason
I'm.
why the DAO was there was to actually raise funds, to actually was a crowd equity proposition to fund projects, to actually experiment to the idea of put proposals in the community will vote which projects will have earned the right to actually have funding in.
Isn't the essence of the question though, like what you actually posed is, to begin with, it is an ideological thing where you have a contract and you're buying into it because you believe in it. But isn't what you're asking is, yes, we understand that, but if we put skin in the game, do we get emotional and then change? Is that not?
Yeah,
the
it
essence
is.
of
But
what you're
I guess
asking?
the other part. I mean, I think it's looking in hindsight now, it's a very core question. But also, at the same time, my solution that's come up in my brain is that there's actually different people that have invested in this type of idea for completely different reasons. Some of them are very for-profit reasons.
Yeah.
Some of them are completely humanitarian reasons. Some of them are just like reasons that my brain can't think about right now.
Absolutely.
But I think if you gave me a few more minutes, maybe I think of another reason. But I think the big thing is that maybe a DAO needs to, future DAOs, even the contract, should actually vet reputations in the future of those types of people that are investing in some type of DAO or contract. So there might be a vetting process in the future that could have prevented this, so that, personally for me, I'd happy to give 50% of my wealth if I knew I was going to move to a better world, but know that I probably wouldn't get it back or something. But that's just because I'm used to losing money and I don't care about things like that sometimes. And but yeah, I just think like far out. If I was going to organise a DAO in the future, there's going to be a serious vetting process, and they'd probably go through like 40 questions to work out what their motives are, their deeper motives. And maybe that's what could have saved the DAO from being such a big fail. It's not a big fail, but it's like from...
We actually argue the fact that the developers who actually wrote the contracts were just a bit sloppy. I mean, are we...
They got too
Well,
big that they couldn't afford for it to fail.
It would go to 160 million.
No one did, no.
Nobody did. So they wrote something on the premise it was going to be this, but it didn't. It became that.
Yep.
So when they actually put all this together, it was for this scenario.
Yep.
But all of a sudden the world went, "Ugh." It was the biggest crowdfund in the history of the world.
Yeah.
So how can you actually expect people that wrote this contract to actually imagine that?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
really it's almost a whole perpetuation of different variables that all just happen to come together at the wrong time.
We all just spiraled out of control,
and
didn't
and
we?
then somebody came along or something came along and went, ugh, I'm going to exploit that. But instead of actually saying, you know what, I'm just going to tap the guys on the shoulders to say, look, there's a little bit of a loop here, you might want to patch that up. That person chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
They chose to do a self-interested act and went, I'm going to get rewarded for this. Look at me, I'm a hero. Ego, ego, ego.
Yep.
So we have to put this in context. The smart contract was there to actually raise this much. And all of a sudden the hype, so what do? You know,
I think that you hit the nail on the head on the problem that the first DAO was way too big.
it was too big.
If it was really small, we'd
They
be
should
like,
have capped it.
let it die, go away.
It wouldn't have been this big discussion of
That's
should
right.
we fork or not.
They were just like,
Good point.
they just kind of went, well, shit, because they're developers, they're software developers.
right.
These are guys that actually work the code. They don't.
And the bug would still be there.
But it's like, this is a real world
true, yeah.
scenario. And I think Vinay actually talked about that. They sort of, when it hit the 10 million, they should have went, ugh, done.
No,
Let's just
do
stop.
more.
Let's hold that baby
Yeah.
down. But
Yeah.
they didn't.
That's
and
a
they
very
had that
opposed
decision. They
idea.
could have made that decision
Yeah.
because they all went and nobody said anything. And that's exactly what Vinay said. As soon as he came out the first time to talk about this, he said, we should have stopped this, and we didn't. And we
But
all
would
had
they
the
have stopped it?
opportunity to have the conversation, and
Yeah.
we chose not to.
But
and we just let it go.
Was it coded in a way that when it started getting too large, I'm sure some of the guys in
Yeah.
Slockit thought this is getting too big,
Yeah.
but then they would have to
Yeah.
soft forked it to stop it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I heard that the devs were freaking the hell out.
They
So,
were
of
freaking
and,
out.
and
the
they
pack,
made
yeah,
and they
the size
didn't
of it.
act,
Yeah.
and they.
It's a good point. It's a very good point you make.
We all know, like, if anyone's participated in crowdfunding, you don't know where it's going to go. It's
And
up to
you're
the
right.
crowd to make the decision on the interest that's garnished, what you're putting out there. They put it out there. The world went boo, and then the world's come back and criticised the whole thing.
Is it a foregone conclusion that this person is actually going to take the money?
Are they going to take it? I don't know.
I don't think that's 100% proven.
I feel like the big question that's still, I mean, and there's just not really any easy answer is, maybe there is, maybe I'm missing it. Do we all say let's hard fork, let's just make it so you can't do this and exclude you, or does that have bad consequences on the long-term goals that Ethereum was putting out as trying to prove itself to be, and maybe a hard fork would go against those ideals? Would they or wouldn't they? And long-term, what's the best sort of choice to make? Like, I feel like there's just so much divide. It's hard to get an answer. Is there an answer?
Well,
I'm always happy that this happened because I feel like this is the way that we get an answer.
That's right.
Yeah.
We find exactly how a hard fork works in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
Because there's so many questions we have about, like, whose buy-in do we need? Is it the miners, the exchanges, is it devs who are really making the decision? Nobody really knows, and we won't know until we actually see how this
Yeah, like, I
hard
have no idea.
decision goes
The
down.
devs have got to be careful. They've got to make sure they put every option on the table and not lean either way. Just
Yeah.
put it on the table and say you've all got the choice to choose.
What you're saying, and the point that's just come across, and I think that was a very good point you just made. If you're going to make an investment in something like this, it's venture capital, and
VC, exactly. This is
it could go
crowdfunding.
when you're going in like that. And the other point you just made, it's about there was an obvious time when this got to a point where it should have been these guys who have got the money in there probably should have said, you know what, hey, this is like out of control now. We're just looking. We could easily lose this.
But then you've
What are we
got
gonna-
the first
how are we gonna protect
$10
ourselves?
million in there that would have been fine.
Yeah.
That those people thought it's not going to get to as big as
When
it
did,
does,
they had a chance.
and then
Now you put it that way. They had a chance to look at it and say, hey, you know, there's a bit of oh wow, I'm going to make some money here.
if you just as an investor, you're thinking this is only going to get to like $5-10 million. I'll just
Yeah.
put it. I'll put in 50% because it's not going to get big, and they're not going to. But then it goes to 160, and there's no way to change it. Like everybody's thinking of it, nobody.
Could you have drawn down, got some insurance? Could you have done something about the money that you got the table in, taken some off the table to protect yourself or whatever?
Yeah, right. Is it possible that, is there any possibility that greed was sort of an element?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's come out.
It's called
Definitely.
human.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I think the
human overcame the tech.
I think the average, and I looked at it, the average investment was $3,000.
Across over 23,000.
Yeah. I think, don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure that was the average. Yeah.
That's huge.
That's huge. Yeah.
That's huge.
$3,000?
$3,000.
Okay.
Obviously,
there's a lot more money. I thought that some people made a lot more, put a lot more in than that.
Well, I think some people wanted to have higher voting rights. Say again?
Scenario, the social networking blockchain. You know, those guys put a stack of cash in there.
One thing that I think a lot of people don't think about is Bitcoin made a lot of people millionaires. Yes. And those people are whales now, and they're keeping real quiet. And a lot of them just would have went, this is the new thing that I'm going to make money, and they just want to chuck Bitcoins that they had from, they've got plenty of them.
Yes.
So this got bigger than it should have in a multitude of different ways.
In terms to answer the hard fork question though, like, would you, like, is it better to frame the whole question around, rather than, look, it's venture capital, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but rather frame it ideologically and say that when you have a system that's designed to keep people out and then you fork and allow people to get back in because they can decide on when you fork, like, is that where you frame it and say that, yes, either we let people in when we want, or no, we don't let them in when we want, and then when you answer that question, have you then answered the hard fork question?
But I think, did anybody lose money in the Mt. Gox crash? And I'm almost 100% certain if that happened in one go, one hack, if it wasn't so money drained for so long, that Bitcoin would have rolled that back. But because it happened over so many months, there was nothing they could do about it. But I'm pretty sure that they would have rolled that back. And so many Bitcoiners are like, we've never hard forked except for that one time that had anything to do with this. So we've never hard forked, but I'm sure if they had the chance for the Mt. Gox debacle, they definitely would have.
I don't think it's going to make a lot of difference one way or the other. I think the mentality will go on. You know, it's one of those tough road bumps in the speedway. You know, we hit a bit of a speed bump here. We've got a bit of wisdom about it now. We move on, make sure the code's better. Obviously, we've got to get back and make sure that, we've got a genius over here and a few troops to make sure that's better and better and better, and this could happen at any time.
There are other altcoins that have hard forked and just failed completely.
Are there any that forked and survived?
I don't know. I just know about the one that's forked and just died.
Is that because the community lost confidence in it?
Not 100% so, but I think it was all to do with the immutability of the blockchain. So as soon as it's the blockchain, don't change it. I think that was the idea.
Has anyone here heard of NXT? It's a relatively, it's a very small altcoin sort of blockchain. And they found themselves, and I don't know too much about it, but they found themselves in a very similar situation to what's happening now in Ethereum, where there was a debate of some kind, there was a divide between the community, and that ultimately stalled the project for months and months. And are we going through that now? These are some tough questions we need to be asking. And how do we reach a consensus? That's my big question. How do you reach a consensus one way or the other to hard fork?
We have a deadline on ours, so it's going to be solved one way or another.
If the consensus for the hard fork goes through and those people get their money out, are they just going to get their money and run?
Yeah, and is that...
Because just because consensus gets reached, that doesn't mean it's going to continue. That just means people are going to get their money and leave. It's a possibility.
Yeah.
To the exact question, are we stalling? If we have a deadline, I take it then that we're not. So
I definitely don't think the devs are stalling, because the soft fork came out and it got repealed so quickly. I think they don't want to have that happen again. They're going to wait until it's perfect, tested, and not tested by some third-party security company that nobody's ever heard of.
It does a 2-page report for $1 million. And
That's right.
It's all good. Yeah.
The big thing is just fix the code. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
Fix the code and just learn from the lesson and make sure that
Well, I mean, that very security report that you raised, that was put out before the first creation phase. So, like, anyone that was serious about doing due diligence, they could have found that and then kind of come to an educated guess on it.
Is it also that, you know, the T's and C's? I mean, my understanding is that somebody actually took the time to read the lines. Was that 1,700 lines? So this person or this thing or this whatever actually read the
actual code
Read
was about 1,500 lines,
Yeah.
and then there was a terms and conditions saying that you know, this is very early, you can lose it all. There may be attack vectors, unforeseen. You know, it uses those very
So
words.
it's in the T and C's, and they went tick.
So what are we talking about?
And how many people verified the code? Doesn't it have a number on how many people actually verified? There was a number there.
I don't know. No.
Yeah, like we all could have looked at it.
Yes.
Well, yeah, the code
Yes.
was there.
Yeah,
The
that's
code
right.
was there, the T and C's were there.
But you saw in how easy and or hard it is to understand between the large T and the small T. Like,
Yeah, there's only one person in this room that really understands it.
I don't know if I do, really.
Maybe you can advise them, Sam.
Yeah.
You can advise them.
I don't think so.
Write a 2-page, you get paid $1 million.
What I begin to ask myself is, okay, we suffered a pretty bad setback, but is it really, is it, you know, maybe that's actually worth $50 million? Is it a $50 million lesson? That's a pretty big question, but if we
Because of
can
how
learn from
new
it-
Ethereum is, I don't think it should have been a $50 million mistake, just because of like the kind of mistake that is being made, like just simple like case sensitive code. Oh, there's like I think a lot of people would probably say this is a mistake that should have been caught a lot earlier on than when we started getting millions of dollars, and that's where everyone is having their problem is with the hard fork and soft fork, is that people are saying, okay, we've learned our lesson, and some people are like, well, I did not pay for that lesson. That was not why I put my money in there. I think that's where everyone is having their problems, is not whether it's a lesson we should have learned, but whether the value of the lesson is actually worth what we spent.
One thing I definitely feel like I have to say is I personally didn't invest in the GAO simply because I didn't feel like I understood the code at all enough to trust it.
And that's a wise investor.
Well,
That's right.
I mean,
That's what, you know, if you don't understand what you're investing in, then
that's
don't
the question
invest
I'm
it.
asking. Is
Well,
that
we're talking about money again.
That's Warren Buffett, yeah.
I wanted to, but I only wanted to put like a small amount just so I could see how it worked.
Yeah.
Not like if the money went missing, I just would have been like, "Whoa, that was a fun game." But I just don't think
I agree with that.
who would have put like $3,000 to me is like
yeah.
yeah.
Into something so early.
I've got so many things I can sell you if you're gonna trust that.
Sure.
It's just crazy.
So that makes me wonder: is it really worth changing the whole thing just because some people were a little bit too overconfident?
Maybe the answer is no.
And is it really
Depends on the demographic.
It does.
Yeah, if we could just like
No
sort
one
of
was
see-
forced to invest. I mean,
yeah, I know, but
yeah.
the question is like how many people do we know if that are, like just sort of imagine for a second like just one of the, like two axes. You have people like on the right side which are invested a lot of money into this. Upper echelon, these are people who invested it because they wanted money back. Lower echelon, people invested in this because they just wanted it to grow. Meanwhile, on the left side, we have people who didn't invest a lot into it. So I think what we should know is rather than people who are the miners because they're making money, miners that are doing it in it, investors or people who are using the system just simply because it exists, we should probably be asking how many people are investing the money because they want to see something happen with it, or they're investing the money for money's sake. Because yes, it gets back in, money is a problem, but
There's going to be so many miners that don't even know what the DAO is. They're literally setting these things up to put it on the exchange to get the money.
yeah, they simply host and are just those kinds of unsung heroes. Where if they weren't there, it wouldn't have been probably worth as much as it was.
Is that not an underlying flaw in the DAO then, that if you have this great barrier to entry, you have to understand this thing, and therefore if you don't understand, you shouldn't invest, and therefore we don't have a large, mass of people moving to a more decentralized system. Is then the DAO just really bad for having a decentralized world? It's just
because it's
just
favouring those who understand the code, like
it's shutting out so many people. If
I agree
you
with
if
But
you're
it's not shutting them out. The
But
thing is,
if
it's
you're a
opening
good
the door,
investor-
and there's no. It's just they're not making that sign very explicit. Is the problem?
yeah,
No,
but
it's early days. People have lost money in the share markets. It's that's just the way of the world kind of thing. So
Yeah, but this is the first time that you're investing in something that, rather than just simply being given like a sheet of paper or 5 pages long saying this is
These are
why we think we'll
perspectives.
exceed, this is a company that autonomy and transparency where they said, Ed, we will succeed here, and this is everything we're working on. So there could have been someone there. Back to the problem of someone found the flaw and they didn't report on it. There should have been people existing that can actually look through it through and through, and this is different to an investment. This is actually being given like a very difficult math problem, and you just sort of ticked in the same answer as everyone else because it's the correct one.
Yeah.
You didn't actually go in and solve it for yourself, and so with that problem, we had an opportunity to invest, but this isn't investing a company. This is someone asking you, is this a good idea? And you either look at it properly and say yes or no, or you just simply say yes or no because everyone else is saying yes or no.
there's so few people that can say yes based on I understand this. Is
Yeah.
that not a problem?
The other
That
thing,
is a problem just because we just don't have a lot of people being educated into it, which unfortunately we cannot force people to be educated into this.
You're not going to be you're not going to be 100% insulated from this unless you build everything on your computer from source, read every single line of that code, and then just so on and so
is it
forth.
important to have people invest in the future? Is it important and critical? Because if you don't do something about this, it's going to stop people from investing, of course.
And then do we not move to what you were saying before, where we just leave the DAO altogether and look at other uses of blockchain?
That's probably the
Well,
biggest
this
thing
has
I
happened.
see.
Like if you watch the documentaries on the 1920s stock market crash, it's almost exactly the same. All these people thought this big thing was going to happen, and it crashed on them. But the stock market's fine. It went through it. It happened, and I think that'll happen with this. We're going to go either one way or the other. Is it going to be Ethereum? It's going to.
I don't know about that. That's one stock market, one sort of situation. Here, there's plenty of choices and places for people to put their money. If you see a situation that appears to be broken down on the basis that someone stole money away and no one did anything about it, then not very many people are going. There's not a lot of people are going to say, well, if that's how it's going to operate, what's the point of me putting?
But couldn't you say there's pros and cons for both sides of the coin? Like, immutability, yes, in this context it's a con, but in other contexts it might have pros over other systems. Like, part of what, in my mind, when I first found out about Ethereum, that made it so different was its complete immutability, the whole code is the law thing. There's not really anything
that's true.
like that
That's
we
true.
have today. So I thought, so if we get away from that, my question is, I have no idea, but my question is, if we move away from that whole thing, is what's the difference? What are the differences it has over what we already have now?
Well, I think you have both. I mean, I think whatever happens here, everyone's going to. It's not going to die. Whatever happens here, hard fork, soft fork, whatever happens.
Well, we are all
Passion-
reliant on the miners, so we don't know. The
Well,
miners is
well,
right
that's
now
what I'm saying,
holding this up.
Well, it's going to evolve, isn't it?
I've
Yeah.
got
Well,
a
that's
question.
actually
trying to read the
Do you
future,
think the DAO should have come out after the move of proof of stake, or because proof of work is like you've got so many people invested in doing something that they might not even care about in the slightest.
It's true. Yeah, it's a fair question. I honestly don't know.
So there's obviously problems with proof of stake, but I don't know. You've obviously got people that are invested in it, have it, want it to continue because they're holding Ethereum. So yeah, I think that's a bit better than a miner that's literally got, well, for the most part, personal gain.
I have something to say. I think that one of the applications and one of the reasons why I got into Ethereum is because I see it as a giant truth-seeking process for the whole planet. It's where we can all start to verify and align our stories of our reality that we have in life, that we can actually kind of we're swimming in this world of information right now. We've got the internet, and now there's just so much information flying about. We can jump into any conversation, but we can never verify how true that conversation is or tokenize where they got that information from and where they got that information from. So until we can do that, we're still just speculating about what we hear every day. So I think it's going to make investments safer when we use blockchain for other solutions, like, is he a man of his word or woman of his word? How often does he say the truth based on what he knows and what he's referenced, what tokens he's referenced, and where he does his research? So Vinny has a good solution of linking up blockchain with Wikipedia, and basically, tokenizing the entire Wikipedia system, which I think would be really cool. And then when words go up, or when a smart programmer like yourself goes and puts something in Wikipedia, we can go through and look at his tokenized history, or the information that he's referencing, the tokened paragraphs that he's referencing, and then we can build this truth score. And that's say again.
It'd change the media.
It would change the media, yeah, and that's what I really love, that whole side of it. And then none the wiser investors like myself can go and look up these truth scores and then think, well, okay, yep, now I will invest because it's been verified by X amount of tokens information. So I think that's another application of blockchain that
I think that's the problem
will
with the
happen.
internet at the moment, is non-referenced information, and what you're talking about sounds excellent, where you can see the references in the blockchain done.
To play devil's advocate with that, I totally agree with that idea. But to play devil's advocate, the last stock market crash, where they were basically selling a product that everyone said, yes, it's AAA. Everyone knows it's AAA. All the experts say it's AAA. Internally, it was changing, where mortgages were just getting poorer and poorer and poorer. But no one was looking at all these mortgages. Everyone was just saying, well, the experts say it's AAA, therefore it's AAA. And it got to a point where it crashed.
Each of those mortgages was linked to the blockchain all the way up to the top, where they couldn't say that it's AAA. It's just an algorithm that says it's AAA.
Yes. You have to basically index every single piece of it to make sure that you're not generalizing and making a statement that's not true. Is that computationally possible?
That's possible.
I think it is. True.
It is possible, yeah.
I think it is.
With Ethereum as well, yeah.
If it is fully verified all the way up, it's going to give people want to more invest in that. Whereas if other people just go, this is just AAA, just believe me.
Yeah.
Less people.
That's what I really like about Ethereum, is because it can solve the issue of trust on a whole lot of levels. It's provably true and fair. And I love that quote where they're kind of trying to say Ethereum is the way the internet was supposed to be.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of crap on the internet. How can you trust it? And this is a protocol that, like with your tokenized example, would solve those problems.
Let's somebody care to sum this up?
Yeah.
Wrap this all up? And not me, I'm just saying, let's have somebody sum this up.
I think, mate, I think that whatever happens, there's nothing that's going to stop the force that's involved here. It doesn't matter. From an outsiding point of view, where you've got something that's so powerful and there's so much will to get this done, that this speed bump is going to cause a little bit of a bump along the way, but none of you are going to fall off the top. You're all just going to keep motoring on and make this happen.
I punctured my tyre the other day, but I just put another tyre on. I went over a big rock. I saw it coming.
So you're just drawing the conclusion that with Ethereum and it's compared to technology and this problem, it's very much how as far as human history is concerned, it is a mere fraction of what the internet is. Like this problem right here, yes, it's a problem. It seems like the biggest problem we have, but as far as like the Internet of Things, technology growing as it is to the point of singularity, it's nothing.
In context.
Yeah, in context. Yes. And we're just asking people to remember that.